Hello, good morning. Welcome to a snapshot from eloquo.ca on our social media and email execution strategy course. These little snapshots that Eloquo has been offering for the last couple of weeks now are a great way to see what it is that we do around here in our day-long courses as a little bit of a trial, so that if you're thinking of getting some actual real training done on these day-long courses, then definitely these snapshots will give you a good idea as to what's going on. Today's topic is actually pretty interesting: social media and email. If you remember the big five pillars, which we'll remind you of in a moment, web search, social, email, and mobile, then you'll see that social media and email actually, they're more the reactionary, go to the outbound type of marketing, right? In that when you're sending out a post, it goes out to your followers. When you send an email, it goes out to your subscribers. Whereas contrast that with search, let's say, search is more best described as inbound with respect to somebody finding you on Google and coming inbound into your site. So the outbound stuff is actually pretty interesting these days, especially with what's going on in the world right now with COVID-19. We're all searching right now for a new normal. Every digital marketer out there who's worth his salt is trying to figure out what the new normal is going to be. I myself am not doing too good these days. As well as teaching for Eloquo, I actually run an agency, and most of my clients were either restaurants or nightclubs or wedding DJ companies, things like that. A lot of entertainment-based stuff, and of course, those sectors have been the hardest hit so far with respect to business closings and job losses and things like that. So, I'm, obviously suffering along with them, but I'm not using my downtime just to, cry in my soup and, watch Netflix all day on the couch. What I'm doing is I'm looking for the new normal, and along with that new normal is going to be a reevaluation of my social media and my email execution strategy, which is kind of fortunate that we're actually going over this course and giving you an hour-long snapshot today as to what it's all about, because it's on my mind greatly these last few weeks as we go through March and into April, and start to figure out how we're going to come out of this mess. So perhaps this snapshot today, perhaps you're feeling the same way, and this snapshot will, maybe spur your creative juices, your reactionary forces within you, no matter what brand or company or government agency you happen to be working with. And maybe you'll pick up a few tidbits that you can bring back into, whatever your discovery journey is in terms of what your new normal is. So let's go through it. There we go. So my name is Jordan St. Jacques. I am the lead digital marketing instructor for all things eloquo.ca. But it doesn't occupy every hour of my day, and my background is actually quite unique. I used to be a concert promoter back in the last decade, and in 2004, when I was in Buffalo, I actually was one of the first. Well, I was the first person in the world to take a MySpace profile over 1 million friends and use it in the context of a digital sales funnel. That lasted till about 2013, where I left that business, returned home to Ottawa, where I grew up, and by 2016, I'd been accepted at Invest Ottawa for a tech startup of mine, and then a year later, in 2017, I moved upstairs to the Carleton cybersecurity wing, where I was accepted in the Lead to Win tech incubator, and then moved over back to Carleton, where I still to this day am a guest lecturer on all things digital marketing for Professor Tony Belletti's Carleton Technology and Innovation Management program. And last but not least, I own Digitera.agency, which is a small yet powerful agency here in Ottawa, taking care of entire digital footprints, all things in the big five pillars, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to give you a couple of reminders before we get into some nitty gritty on email and social and things like that. They're just worthy of reminding you with respect to social and email and what they do. And Anyway, you'll see. I'll tie it off soon in a future slide. So the big 5 pillars, I've mentioned that before: web, search, social, blast, and mobile. Okay. Web, of course, is always going to be a big 5 pillar of digital marketing, because that's where everything has to get funneled to, right? And there's one simple reason for that. Websites can be crawled by Google, so web and search pretty much go hand in hand. Search, I should point out, web is search, but search is not necessarily just web, because search encompasses a bunch of different things. There's the on-site code, like when Google crawls your website and looks at the code in your website and the text of your blog articles and all that kind of stuff. But search also encompasses everything else you do online, like, for example, your brand posts on social media, your blog entries, your backlinks, your directory placements, things like that. All of that goes into the calculation that actually makes up where you rank on Google, kind of thing, for your SERPs. SERPs being search engine results placements. Social and blast. Social media, of course, is one of the 2 big topics for today in this hour. And blast, of course, is the second one. And blast is primarily email, but it also includes text message marketing as well. And then last but certainly not least is mobile. And mobile, of course, contains push notifications, which could be considered a blast format as well. But because push notifications are primarily based out of a mobile device, that's why we give mobile a category on the big 5 pillars all of its own. Okay. The other reminder that I want to talk to you about, of course, is the lead funnel, right? Awareness, consideration, conversion, loyalty, and advocacy. Awareness, of course, is finding out about a particular good or service. Consideration is where you consider whether that good or service actually solves whatever problem you have to be facing. Remember, nobody buys anything or parts with any money unless your product, your good, your service is solving a problem for that buyer. Conversion, of course, is the decision to actually make the purchase. Loyalty is stepping it up and actually taking that user who's converted and having them convert over and over again. And then finally, advocacy is a very important one. Advocacy is when that customer actually spreads the word, like word of mouth advertising, to their peers on a peer-to-peer basis. And advocacy, of course, is the holy grail. When you achieve advocacy, that's when you can theoretically go viral. The last one that I want to remind you of is, of course, I don't know, maybe media categories is not a good word there. Media measurements, if you will, I don't know. But essentially, there's 3 types of ways to measure media success. And the first one is with organic media. The second one is with paid media. And then lastly, the category of earned media is the one that we all strive for, okay? And essentially earned media, goes, when you go back here and you talk about advocacy, earned media is synonymous with advocacy, because what earned media is well, let's get it right down to its roots. Let's say you post something on Facebook, and then 100 people who manage to be following your page or your profile or whatever, they actually share that post with their friends. That's earned media. You earned that media by being a great content marketer, for example, or posting something funny. And that's, the act of being a great content marketer, and hence having people share your content. That's why they call it earned media. You earned that share by actually putting your heart and soul into whatever that content marketing was. Okay. Excuse me. Bad time to have a Canadian cough, eh? One more thing I should actually tell you about. There's a method through the interface is to actually pose a question. So if you guys have questions while we go along, by all means, feel free to ask them. I don't mind interrupting whatever I'm doing to answer a question, as long as that question is relevant to what I happen to be talking about. Anything that's not relevant, save it to the end of the hour. And when we get to, close to noon, it could be right at noon, could be shortly before, I'll open up the floor for questions and answers and answer anything that anybody has. not just on the topics of today, but on anything digital marketing and Eloqua courses as well. Okay, so out of the lead funnel, what does social help with, right? Now, you could actually go through all 5 steps on the lead funnel, and you could make an argument that social helps with everything. And you'd be partially right because it does help with everything. But there are 2 categories where social helps more than the rest, all right? And that's the first category, and that's the last category: awareness and advocacy, all right? Now, awareness is essentially is obviously bringing a customer who's unaware of your good or service or your company brand, and bringing them to the top of your funnel, which is of course your website, as we took a look before on the big 5 web digital marketing pillars. Awareness is achieved by smart content marketing distributed so that that user will actually see it. Okay, and it's easier said than done. I mean, it's these days, the problem these days with digital marketing is that there's so much noise out there, right? You open up your profiles and there's this person and that person. When I first started with digital marketing, first with MySpace in 2004, then later on with Facebook in 2008, when after MySpace fell off and Facebook came up, it was easy because nobody was really morphing into the whole digital marketing thing. I mean, it wasn't until 2010, 2011 when things started to really heat up, and Madison Avenue, our marketing agencies, ad agencies, started actually using social media for the first time, the word social media. So back then it was actually very easy, but nowadays digital marketing is the #1 spend category within the actual marketing mix. I mean, it's more than TV, it's more than radio, it's more than out of home. So to achieve awareness is actually not the easiest thing in the world. To achieve that awareness, you've got to have really, really great smart marketing, especially content marketing, right? These days, video rules everything, right? If you have a video post, it's going to get, many multitudes of factors greater than image posts or text posts, especially. And so therefore, that content marketing holy grail is something that fits into everything, but especially social media as well. All right. So social media also helps with consideration, conversion, and loyalty, right? But the second category that it makes tremendous effect on is advocacy, right? And that comes from a variety of things. #1, it can come from people sharing your post. That's a form of advocacy. #2, the advocacy factor of social media has resulted in the rise of a brand new category of influencer marketing, of digital marketing, called influencer marketing. Now, influencers, for those of you who don't really know much about influencers, these are people that have already achieved persona match and reach with their social media profiles. All right. So I'm going to tell you about how influencers came up, and you'll see the logic there. Essentially, what we try and do with digital marketing is we try and achieve a persona match all the time, and it's much easier to do with digital marketing than it is with any of the other categories like TV or radio or any of them, right? Out of home, guerrilla, experiential, and with digital marketing especially though, we used to enjoy a lot of organic features from the big networks back in the day. Like for example, with Facebook these days, if you want to get your post out there, you have to pay. You have to boost your post with a payment of some kind. Whereas before 2012, we didn't have to make that payment. Our post was reaching everybody who had liked our page in the first place. So Facebook took that organic reach away and replaced it with a paid product. Now, this is about the time when they went public. So obviously they were looking for newer sources of revenue to justify stock price, et cetera, et cetera. I suppose if I was Mark Zuckerberg, I might have done the same thing. However, any organic-based digital marketer who's been at this for a long time was obviously not pleased. So brands, it became harder for them to actually build up a proper organic following on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. And it was at the point where it wasn't even worth the effort anymore to try and build up their own brand assets. So what did they do? Did they just fold in the towel and throw in the towel and, fold up shop? No, of course not. I mean, some of these marketers are some of the most aggressive people in the world. So when you cut off one avenue from these types of Madison Avenue marketers, they're going to find another one. And what they did was reach out to people who had already built up their own profiles and done it in such a way that achieved persona match. Like, for example, if you're going to come out with the next, the latest and greatest fishing rod, and you want to sell that out there, that as an influencer, you probably want to reach out to the Duck Dynasty guys. And that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. Now, however, if you're going to sell some sort of beauty enhancement product, then you probably want to reach out to Kylie Jenner or Kim Kardashian and have them influence on your behalf, right? That's a form of advocacy that you don't have to necessarily achieve on your own efforts. You can reach out, make a payment to, some of these mega or micro influencers, if you will, and actually achieve that advocacy in the form of a paid ad, right? So therefore, you're mixing paid ads, you're mixing advocacy at the same time. And that's, when you start to get into those really powerful influencer campaigns, those are the most powerful campaigns these days. So anyway, social helps with awareness and advocacy, okay? What is social good for? All right, social is good for acquiring customers today, tomorrow, whereas search is a category where you're going to have to reach out and put in effort for at least a couple of months before achieving any effect whatsoever. The whole aspect of social is that you can acquire customers today, okay? You do that with effective posting that contains great content marketing, video, audio, image, right? Obviously, video is much more engaging than audio, and audio is also more engaging than imagery. And but you'll make the choice for your brand as to what kind of content marketing that you want to execute. The aspect of hashtag sentiment analysis is also very, very big. And for those of you who were not listening before in my previous courses, hashtag sentiment analysis is the science or arts, depending on how you define it, of reaching out to people that have defined themselves through their use of hashtags in their posts that sort of qualify those people as being interested in a good or service. All right, so what does that look like? What are some of those examples? Example number one that I like to use all the time is hashtag engaged. Hashtag engaged signifies that the post is most likely have been made within the last 72 hours by a bride that has recently got engaged. All right, and this is actually proven by a study conducted by one of the major wedding magazines a few years back, that within 72 hours, over 95% of newly engaged bride-to-bes will actually post on social and use the hashtag engaged. So that's hashtag sentiment analysis. It's showing that the bride is a possible customer of all of those wedding vendors that we've seen at a bridal show. Another hashtag sentiment analysis example is hashtag accident. If somebody posts hashtag accident, odds are that it's a post about somebody that has just been in an accident. And that's music to every injury lawyer's ears in the United States of America. Not so much in Canada because we don't have that kind of a court system, but certainly in the USA, those accident injury lawyers, it's a prominent field. And so as a result of that, we have a lot of lawyer clients in that vein who are chasing people that qualify themselves as having just been in an accident by using the hashtag accident, okay? Engagement is also prominent with respect to social media and websites, okay? We haven't included websites in here, but I'm just gonna show you a little example of how we can increase Facebook engagement with a simple tool on our website. So I'm actually pulling up my own website right now. Watch what happens in the bottom right. So see this little live chat widget? We've seen all of these live chat widgets for a number of years now. Most of them come from third-party companies, and most of them you have to pay for. This one here is a free live chat widget, and it's actually supplied by Facebook. If you embed it into your WordPress website and then do the configuration, these messages will actually go to my Facebook business page, therefore increasing engagement with those users to my Facebook business page. And that's obviously a goal that's a primary importance to a lot of different companies. Drive to Facebook. You don't necessarily have to drive to website. You can drive to Facebook, right? And that also gives you traction with respect to that user when it comes to paid ads, things like that. So driving people to your Facebook page is a good thing through and through. Okay. Now, email helps primarily with two different categories than what social does. You'll remember that social helped primarily with awareness and advocacy. Excuse me. The first and the last categories in the lead funnel, whereas email helps primarily with the third and the fourth, conversion and loyalty. And that makes sense when you start to really break this down, okay? You can't get awareness with email because if somebody's not on your email list, then they're not aware. They don't know about your company in the first place. Same goes for consideration. What you have to do is you have to build up a proper organic email list. You can't just, stuff your email list with spammy emails in hopes that that email is actually going to a human being somehow. You have to build your email list very, very organically and make sure that the people that are on your email list are people that want to be on your email list, okay? So therefore, you got a bunch of people that are already aware about your company on your email list. Of course, should you, decide that you're actually going to build your email list the way I'm suggesting it, okay? Let's just get rid of this. And having said that, if you have that organically built email list, then you've got a bunch of people that are basically there waiting to be converted. I actually can't put it back to full screen, Sierra, because I'm going to be hopping back and forth between slides all the time now. So, but you're going to get a copy of this webinar, so you can just blow it up in your screen later. Okay. All right. So, conversion and loyalty. After you've built up your organic list, or at least partly there, essentially you've got a bunch of users or subscribers on your email list that want to be converted, and they want to stay loyal as well. So if you actually send out your emails in a proper manner using less is more, which we'll get to a little bit later, then you're going to be in a position to actually optimize those conversions that can come off of your email list. Remember, people subscribe to your email list because they're interested in your good or your service, and they want to know more and possibly buy your product if you can show them that it's going to solve whatever problem that they actually have, okay? So let's keep going. Email is good for conversion and retention. These days, one of the things that I'm seeing all over the place is that companies, especially the bigger ones, are reacting to the COVID-19 situation and sending out emails as to how they can possibly help you in your time of trouble, okay? Essentially what they're doing with these is they're trying to retain you as customers, because they know that we're in a situation right now where nobody knows what the new normal is. We're all searching for that new normal, and no one knows where it's going to land. And so therefore people are very likely to change suppliers, let's say, on a particular service or good that they need in order to even save a couple of bucks. I mean, these days, gas is so price responsive. I think gas was 66 cents at the station the other day. We haven't seen that for, what, 15, 20 years. So you can see that people are hopping around all over the place. People are in self-preservation mode. And so therefore, what a lot of good companies is they're using email to actually try and retain customers, offer, value adds, offer discounts, that kind of thing. And you'll see a lot of that going forward. Even Burger King, for all, not that anyone's going out and buying fast food very much these days, but Burger King changed their commercials on the major networks in a very, very quick manner. With now they have their new tagline saying, you may not be thinking of us, but we're thinking about you. And I thought that was actually a pretty good commercial. Mind you, I'm a little biased because I happen to like the Whoppers, but I thought that was good that they would actually, within a week of all the shutdowns, they had new creative and they were, pumping it out on the air. and actually telling people, basically showcasing how Burger King as an international, food chain was reacting to the situation, hoping to retain business. Okay, so like I said, email is pretty good at conversion, and email is also pretty good at retention as well. And those are, for me anyway, those are the primary two goals of, you could stick in some awareness stuff and things like that, especially for the politicians. But conversion and retention, for me, tend to be the biggest factors, okay? All right, so how do you social to build an email list? There's a lot of different ways you can do it, and this is one of the things. We got a question from Louis Vaillancourt here. Maybe a word on Law C-28. Because Law C-28 is actually, is that C-28 or G-28? Yeah, the law is actually something we save for the day course, because there's a lot of a lot of content to go over with that and a lot of strategy around that. But definitely the legal aspects. I'll touch on that a little bit later. But the legal aspects are something that we cover in the day course, Louis. So how do you social to build email? Like I said, there's a lot of different techniques, maybe about 20 to 25 techniques that are worth knowing about with respect to how to integrate social, or how to post on social in order to drive people to sign up for an actual email, to subscribe to an email list, let's say. But I'm going to go over 4 now, but just know that we actually do that in the day course as well, okay? So signing up for a white paper, that's a trick that's been around for a long time, but it still works. So let's say, if you were with us on, I think it was on Tuesday, we went over content ratio breakdown, and of course between the 4 categories of educational, informational, promotional, and humor. And one of the educational ways of doing things is within a white paper, and we've all seen that before, right? The white paper that you send out about your industry and how your tool tends to fit into that industry. Buffer.com does a pretty good job of that with their blog section. So you can actually have people sign up for your email list and basically set up your drip campaign to send them an automated PDF attachment reply email within seconds of them actually signing up. So this is something that you don't actually have to worry about, about sending out, items like this white paper manually, unless you want to, of course. But it can be a little bit cumbersome if you've got, like, say, 2,000 people a day signing up for your email list to receive this white paper. It's something that you actually want to automate, so that it's just handled automatically for you. Another automatic thing that you can actually do through an email sign up and a drip campaign reply format is entering for a discount. And you could just be like a discount coupon, let's say some sort of image attachment that looks like a 10% off coupon or a 20% off coupon. And you might say, well, if we're giving away so many discounts, aren't we going to suffer for that? Well, if you're retail, you might suffer if you're restaurants. I mean, restaurants, of course, at this point, we all know the story as to how restaurants kind of failed with that whole Groupon model. But with retail, the keystone rate is above 50% markup these days anyway. So if you give 10% off, you're just giving up a little bit of your margin. You're still going to make money. Another one is advance notice. VIP club type format, and that works for both email and text messaging. And I'm going to give you a little case study. Ladies in Ottawa, if you've ever been at Bank and Third, you may have seen the clothing store there, Delilah, just across from the Starbucks. So that's owned by a wonderful friend of mine named Eva Cooper. And the way she handles things is that emails and text messages, or cell numbers, are basically acquired organically, right? In other words, anybody that buys anything in the cash, who's ever cashing them out says, would you like to be on our list? And since it's done so folksy and so customer service like, the people who actually sign up on that want to receive notification on new items in the store. So what Eva does is, once she has these lists acquired, she only sends out very, very relevant information to these these subscribers. And because these subscribers were approached so organically to actually, to like the question being whether they wanted to be on the list or not, they all have enthusiasm for communications from Delilah, from the Delilah store. And their open ratios on some of their emails are like what, 70, 80%, which is just unheard of in the email marketing industry. But because she has such a loyal following, combined with the fact that she treats their information with such respect, she ends up doing very well with her email marketing. And what she does also is she pushes people on her social to actually sign up on email, saying that if you're not on the email list, you are not eligible for this. You will not qualify for that. You will not be entered into the contest for this. Things like that. And so that's kind of we'll talk about content in a couple of slides, but certainly the aspect of advanced notice VIP club type mechanisms to get people on social to subscribe to an email list is something that's worth doing. And then last but not least, you can also use social for tech support requests. And during those tech support requests, you can ask for an email as well. To be honest with you, I don't even know why I stuck that last one in. It doesn't really fit, just like that old Sesame Street thing. One of these things did not belong here. Anyway, let's keep going. How to use email to build social. All right. Anything that you send out by email is simply text in a body, right? And I don't really like putting in more than one call to action in an email. I think it's too confusing. I am a big proponent of the less is more method, and I'll get to that in a second. But for the moment, for this slide here, you have to pick where you're going to point your people, right? And in this case, well, normally 9 times out of 10, where you want to point them is your website. But in this case, where I think you want to point them to actually help build a social following is push them somewhere. Now, this started to happen about 3 years ago once older retail store owners started discovering the power of Instagram and realizing that they should be on Instagram. And so what you saw is a lot of email blasts go out from these older, retail stores that were owned by older people, and they were pushing people towards their Instagram. Go follow us on Instagram, and then they will put the Instagram link. So therefore, they were using the power of their already existing email address to push people, drive people to Instagram and follow them there. And then what do you do with that? I mean, obviously, people need to be rewarded with that kind of stuff. They would be entered into a contest, or they would be eligible to win a freebie of some type, or this or that, right? The mechanism was always different depending on the actual store. But certainly there was some sort of a mechanism that when you ask somebody to go to their Instagram accounts and follow, or to go to your Instagram account and follow you, that there was some sort of reward. Get a discount if you follow us. Be entered into a contest if you follow us. Share our post and get an even bigger discount. People are, being driven to social all the time through email. And, and so therefore we can say with certainty that it's a very, very powerful thing, okay? All right, the last 20 minutes, why don't we get into a little bit of practical stuff with respect to email delivery, because that's a really, really, really tricky situation, okay? First of all, use a respected email delivery platform. The two biggest corporate ones out there are MailChimp and Constant Contact. They are reliable. At the lower levels, they are cheap or free. But once you start passing 15, 20,000 emails or subscribers on your list, it starts getting expensive. So the third item on this list is a do-it-yourself method item. The script is called Sendy, but Sendy is designed to integrate with the SES service, which stands for Simple Email Service, on Amazon AWS Cloud. And the thing about the Sendy is you can choose which server farm you want your Amazon AWS instance to be on. So therefore, you can actually take advantage of the fact that Amazon now has a server farm in Montreal and place your DIY self-hosted script in the Montreal form, meaning that agencies like the Canadian government could actually use your platform because the servers exist on Canadian soil. As you all know, the Canadian government can't have their email traffic going out on American soil. It's just not, not something they do. So with this case, you can actually, either write your own script or buy a script like Sendy, which is only like 59 bucks, if I recall. It could be more or less a little bit, but that's roughly what it is. And actually host your own email platform, email delivery platform. Okay. So, and there's lots of options. These are only the top three that I could think of when I was doing up these slides. There's like 30 or 40, maybe more email delivery services. So, okay, but the biggest thing to remember, okay, is you have to warm up your email delivery system. All right, you have to warm up your domain, warm up your IP address, your sender reputation, etc., etc., etc. Okay, if you don't, then you could theoretically end up with a blacklist, right? If you send, let's say you've got 10,000 emails and you never sent out an email address in your life, or an email blast in your life, right? If you take all of those 10,000 emails, you load them up into MailChimp, and then you just send them all out at the same time, you could have a bunch of emails bounce on you. If you have more than a 5% bounce on your list, your account is going to get suspended. It doesn't matter who you're with, MailChimp, Constant Contact, Amazon, your account will get suspended, if not deleted, if you have more than a 5% bounce ratio. That's just a fact of life. And if you end up with an account suspension, then you're also going to end up being blacklisted on the biggest blacklist site of all time, which is spamhaus.org. And if you end up on their blacklist, good luck on getting off, right? In fact, getting off of the Spamhaus blacklist list is actually so onerous that what a lot of email marketers will do is, if they end up with that sort of blacklist, what they'll do is they'll just throw away the domain, and then they'll never come back to it. So you can see that you've really got to take some care warming up. Okay, now what is that? Anyway, the reason why I mention all these things is because that's what Spamhaus looks at. They'll look at what domain is coming in. They'll look at the IP address of the server that you're sending your emails from. They'll look at the sender reputation of your email address, and so on and so on and so on. There's a lot of different factors that they actually look at. And so you have to warm it up. And what does warming up look like? It means that week number 1 through week number 4, you're only sending out max 100 emails a week, right? And then in weeks 5 to 8, you're only sending out 250 emails a week, right? Then in month number 3, it goes to 500 emails a week, etc., etc., etc. So you might say to yourself, well, I can't wait for 6 months so I can send out all my 10,000 emails at once. You have to, because if you send out those 10,000 emails and just try and jam them through, you're going to get blacklisted, and you're going to end up not being able to send out any emails no matter what, right? And in fact, these days, spam detection is so quick that, let's say you started like a blast of 10,000 emails. By the time 2/3 of those emails gone through, Spamhaus will have judged your emails. They'll have given you a blacklist or not. And if you get that blacklist about 2/3 of the way through sending your actual blast, it'll suspend the rest of your blast. It is that quick. So you have to really make sure that you warm up stuff. And there's, all you have to do is Google the search term warm up email address or warm up sender email. And there's all kinds of articles that'll start coming up like crazy. You can read to your heart's content, okay? So remember, you must warm up your all the factors that go into your sender reputation, okay? Excuse me. With respect to content, okay, less is more. I cannot stress that fact enough. Less is more, okay? You might be so happy about your business, and you might just want to sit on the rooftops and scream and shout and say, look at me, but it doesn't work. And you know this intuitively because you've all received emails. And if an email has too much text, even if it's from somebody you know, chances are you're going to delete it or just put it aside and say, oh yeah, sure, I read it, but really you didn't read it, right? And that just means that you have to remember, when you're actually writing content, you have to put yourself into the mind of the receiver and give them what they want. You're trying to get them to read, right? You can't be, well, this might not be a pretty good example, but you can't be Donald Trump and be self-congratulatory all the time. You must think of the actual person receiving that email and what are you going to have to do to make sure that they actually read it, okay? Remember, the title determines the open ratio and the body content determines the click-through ratio, all right? Now, I'm going to give you a nice case study to actually take a look at here. And this will show you exactly what I've been talking about with less is more, okay? Excuse me. So when I was at the Invest Ottawa Incubator, there's another company there named ChangeJar, run by a great guy, experienced executive. He was the guy that first brought Wi-Fi into Starbucks when it first came in, had some success in the tech scene. And he had this new product that was a payment system for retailers that allowed peer-to-peer transfer through mobile phones, the QR codes and all that kind of stuff. So he wanted retailers to actually adopt it. And so what he ended up doing, well, he hired me to do 8 weeks of email delivery, marketing for him. And I did a good job. Week number 1, though, was interesting. And what happened in week number 1 was this guy said, okay, I'm going to write the content and I'm going to give it to you. And you just send it out. And I'm like, okay, fine. Let's see how it goes. Anyway, he wrote like an 8-paragraph semi-novel about the whole thing. And his subject line was like 15 words or something. And so I'm like, Tom, this isn't going to work. He's like, just send it. So he was the boss and I did as he asked. I sent it out for him. Week number, and the results were terrible. It was like 8% opens and 0% click-throughs. And so week number 2, I said, well, listen, if we don't get these metrics up, you're going to fire me anyway. So I'm going to write the content. And of course, his CEO ego didn't like that too much, but he decided to, let me have a go at it. I stuck to the less is more principle so much. My subject line was only 5 words and completely concentrating on the value proposition of the ChangeJar product. The second aspect was that my body content was only 3 sentences, where each sentence was basically a paragraph and talking about what the product did for the retailer rather than what the product feature set was all about. So that less is more email, excuse me, gets sent out, and we end up with 69% open ratio and a 42% click-through ratio, which for a tech industry email blast, cold email blast to businesses, was actually really quite good. Okay, it just goes to show you got to figure out who you're sending those emails to and write that content according to what they need, not what you need. Okay, it's all about them. Remember, nobody gives you any money unless you're solving a problem for them. And the same goes with the communications that you send out to those people. No one's going to read it unless you speak to their problem. It's the same principle. All right, quick little slide here on best email sending times. All right, Monday to Thursday, it is as you would expect in the morning. Friday is a different animal. All right, and we actually did a bunch of different A/B testing to find this out. And this may not work for your business. This works for the tech industry. So we found out that Friday at 3 o'clock was the best time to send out an email on Friday. And the reason why is because people on Fridays, apparently, they stop working around 3 o'clock. They don't work anymore. And so if you're giving them something to read on a Friday afternoon after they've sort of shut off their engines for the week, well, then chances are more likely that they're going to read your email. So we found Friday at 3 was an optimal time. And then, of course, Sunday at 7 o'clock, the family's at home, you've, put the dishes away after dinner, et cetera, adults sitting down to, do their Facebook or do their Pinterest or whatever it is that they do on their computers on Sunday evenings. We found that sending out an email blast on Sunday evenings was actually a good thing. Now, having said that, there's only a certain type of email that works on a Sunday, and that's very very loose, very folksy, right? What's going on in the world? How is our product fitting into it? How's our company doing? Things like that. If you start sending out promotional content on a Sunday evening, that's probably not going to work, right? But keeping it to the informative and perhaps the educational versions of the content actually works on a Sunday evening. Okay. All right. Last of the formal slides. Let's just talk about Tooltime types. Okay. I haven't listed any actual tools here. Unlike some of the things that I've actually done earlier this week and late last week, where I did list actual tools, this one's here, I'm just listing tool types, okay? So what you want for social media, most importantly, is you want some sort of a scheduler, okay? Dealing with social media posts when it's time to post in a manual format is going to waste a lot of time for you. It's better just to deal with the scheduler on Monday morning, plan your social media content for the entire week, get it into the scheduler so that it just posts automatically, okay? There's a number of different schedulers out there. The big two are Hootsuite, followed by Buffer, but there's also a lot of smaller ones like Social Mako is the one I use, Amplifier I used to use before I moved over to Social Mako. There's about 40 or 50 of them out there, and I think that depending on the networks you want to post on, you should be able to find the scheduler that works best for you. Don't necessarily just stick to Hootsuite and Buffer. They're not, just because they're the oldest ones doesn't mean they're the best. I mean, that's not a tech tool that really has a high barrier to entry anyway. It's easy for a scheduler to actually leapfrog them, okay? Image dimensions. Find yourself a good cheat sheet for social media image dimensions, all right? There's lots of different kinds of image dimensions with respect to what Facebook needs versus what Twitter needs versus what Instagram needs, et cetera, right? Pinterest, Snapchat, TikTok, and a good image dimensions cheat sheet will actually help you out, okay? Graphics tools. Are you going to be doing all your graphics in the big Adobe Creative Suite? Oh, and by the way, Eloquo, the reason why Eloquo started as a training school was in the Adobe Creative Suite. So if you need training on things like Photoshop and Illustrator, Adobe Premiere Pro, Adobe After Effects, Adobe Audition for audio, Adobe XD, then definitely you need to take a look at Eloquo's offerings, okay? But let's say you don't want to actually deal with some of the big Adobe Creative Suite tools. What you can also do is actually look at some of these online tools. Like one of the ones I like to use is capwing.com, which has a whole variety of tools. There's also photopea.com. There's also canva.com. There's a whole bunch of them out there that are simpler tools to use than the Adobe Creative Suite. But if you just got to get something done at a pinch, do you necessarily want to open up Adobe Photoshop? Not all the time. So having your suite, having your selection of graphic tools on your bookmark is actually something. Last but not least, for social, try and use some sort of a URL shortener. It helps with character count, especially with Twitter. If you use, say, Bitly, to shorten up your URLs so that you can, get more text characters into your Twitter tweet, then you're going to serve yourself well. Okay. With respect to email tool types, definitely the first thing you want to do is obviously organize some sort of a delivery platform. Choose your MailChimp or your Constant Contact, or if you like my suggestion of buying the Sendy script for that low price one time and uploading it to like an Amazon server in Montreal, let's say, so that you can actually satisfy Canadian government email. That's up to you, but definitely work out some sort of delivery platform, okay? Spam checker and title checker, they kind of go hand in hand. What you can do and there's a lot of these online tools as well, but what the general format of the spam checker and the title checker is you take your body or your title and you paste it in and press submit, and then that tool will give you an opinion as to whether your title or your text body for your email actually looks too spammy, okay? And then last but not least, every major blacklist in the world has a blacklist checker where it'll check your domain name, or it'll check your IP address, or it'll check your email address, and you just paste it in and press check, and that blacklist checker will actually tell you if you're already blacklisted or if you're still safe. So definitely, get yourself some sort of a blacklist checker recommendation tool. Do a search on Google, test them out, figure out which one works for you, and away you go. All right, that ends my formal slides. At this point, we got a few minutes left in the hour. If there's anybody who has any questions whatsoever, now is the time to ask. And it doesn't matter if it's, if it's relevant to the content that we've talked about this hour today. It could be on anything. For example, from the 2 courses I did last week and the one I did on Tuesday this week, or it could just be anything that we haven't even covered yet. By all means, now is the time to ask questions. Use the interface, the GoToWebinar interface in the chat bubble area, and away you go. Paste them in there. I'm ready. Ready for your questions. Okay, looks like a couple are coming through. I didn't mention anything about LinkedIn. Should it have a different approach? Yes and no. How's that for an answer? The LinkedIn aspect, I mean, LinkedIn is a different animal altogether, right? Obviously, LinkedIn is a professional network, and accordingly, it's not something that you should necessarily worry about when it comes to marketing to your company. However, with B2B sales, it's something that is worthy of consideration. However, if you're like me, you probably get at least 3 or 4 or more cold messages a day on LinkedIn, and I got to tell you, I don't read any of them. I accept them as connections because I want to have a nice 30,000 connection LinkedIn like Justin Trudeau there. But I don't I don't read any of their value propositions or any of their pitches or anything like that. I just don't have the time. So I don't know if I would do so. The yes and no of LinkedIn means that I don't know if I would do the traditional approach where people are, basically cold calling each other all over LinkedIn. I don't think that works at all. It takes a lot to break through the noise on LinkedIn, and it just, it's probably not worth the time. However, LinkedIn is starting to change their pages, their groups, and they're trying to make them a little bit more viral, like the way Facebook's pages and groups are. In fact, these days, well, let's go into my LinkedIn and I'll show you what I mean. So with LinkedIn, you can have various pages. I'll go to my Crowdfluence page. Oh, sorry. Now, under this, you can see my cursor here, towards the top right, there's a section called Admin Tools, okay? There's a section now where you can invite your connections, right? So this is a sort of like the way that in Facebook pages, you can invite your friends to like a page. Now, LinkedIn has added this over the last year, and they're rolling it out slowly but surely, where you can click on invite connections and start inviting people who are already your connections to your LinkedIn company page. And I think that is going to change the effectiveness of company pages. And so therefore, you might want to consider that as part of your marketing mix. I hope that answers your question, Louis. Your email blasts appear to work. Most of your sessions were sold out. Well, thank you very much. I'm not actually the one who did those email blasts. That was Jody back in the office, but clearly we all share knowledge. If you don't retail, hold on. If you don't retail but offer progressive B2B services, Louis, can you expand on that question a little bit? Like if you don't retail but offer professional B2B services, then what? In terms of what aspect? Social or email or what? Can you just maybe submit another question? And and explain that a little bit, please? Yes. Okay. Now I see what you're doing. Okay. Um, yeah. Like obviously B2B would be LinkedIn. Now here's another one that sort of overlaps on search. Okay. And this is why I switched over to a scheduler. Like I know a lot of people are still using Hootsuite and perhaps Buffer, but I switched over last year to a new one called Social Mako. And Social Mako has up-to-date features with respect to posting onto your Google My Business profile. Now, that's not technically a social network, but the thing is that your Google My Business entry is one of the most important things that you can do with respect to your SEO, to your rankings, especially for local SEO. For example, all the information that Google pulls into Google Maps comes from your Google My Business listing. That's just one thing about Google My Business that's worthy of knowing. So with respect to B2B, what I do is the following. I'll use LinkedIn primarily. I will also post to Google My Business. I will, in a B2B format, actually use Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, but not in the ratios that I would use them if it was a B2C type application. Okay, you still need to be able to, to showcase your products. And unfortunately, LinkedIn is not the best place to do that. It's still, the big three of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's just that you also have to add in a very, very strong LinkedIn component as well. So I'll give an example. I got a friend of mine in Washington State right now who actually brings in products from China in bulk and actually sells them. And when this crisis hit in March, he was sitting on 20,000 of those N95 masks. And so what he that's obviously a B2B type situation because he's before this crisis hit, he was selling them to hospitals and clinics and things like that. What he's been doing is with those 20,000 that he had in stock when everything in the world turned upside down, is he was showcasing pictures of the boxes themselves stuck in his warehouse and putting them on Facebook and then taking that Facebook link and then posting it all over the place. But he was doing a comprehensive campaign with multiple social networks, not just the B2B ones, but the B2C ones as well, because let's face it, everybody who's going to reach on B2C is working for some company somewhere. And so therefore it's important to have a presence on all networks. It's just that you don't pay as much attention to your Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You place more emphasis on the LinkedIn. But for any brand, anywhere, anytime, you have to go through all the channels and say to yourself, who am I going to reach on this channel? And is that channel even worth using? I do a channel analysis every time I start a new brand, and I say, for example, how is Facebook going to be productive for this particular product or this particular brand? And I'll go, for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, the whole gamut of networks to actually determine which networks I should be using going forward. Okay. All right. Any other questions? We're at the end of the question tree. Okay, yeah, then just deal with actually, you know what? I can see a case for Facebook as well. Don't forget, Facebook is it's not like when Facebook first came out, it was the domain of youth. But these days, and this started to shift right around 2012, 2013. And when mom and dad and grandma and grandpa started hopping on Facebook, that's when youth started hopping off of Facebook. So I would still make a case that even though you might be a headhunter, of course you're going to want to use LinkedIn primarily, okay? But I think LinkedIn has that product for employment recruiters, specialized product. But I still think you need to have a Facebook page presence. I'm never going to get away from that, even if it's just limited. Don't forget, it's not necessarily just for users, okay? It's also that Google sees every post now that's indexed on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Pinterest as well. So if Google is indexing those posts, you need to be posting on there no matter what. Don't forget, these days, it's not just about having a human being see you, it's about having Google see you as well. And Taylor, you're more than welcome. And to everybody else, thanks for being with us here today. Oh, hold on. All kinds of other questions. No, here's Sylvia. Thank you. You're welcome, Sylvia. And Taylor, Facebook is now for old people, only in North America. In other countries in the world, Facebook is still there's still a lot of youth in there, right? I mean, except for Asia. Asia is kind of defected over to TikTok, but that's another story for another time. Okay, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you learned something and took something of value from this hour. And like I said, if you think that you need greater training, consider the Eloquo day-long courses, and chances are you'll see me in front of you, up in front of you in the class, or if you're taking a day-long course during these uncertain times, then it'll be remote like this as well. But either way, we'll get you trained up and we'll get your digital footprint functioning that much better. Thank you for being here today. Take care. Keep safe.